Hey, this is Kelly. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Therapist. Today, the question that I'm going to be answering is, does being a therapist ever take its toll on your own mental health? The reason that I'm answering that question is because I feel like right now there are a lot of very blurred lines in our lives. Some of you are working from home. Some of you are not working right now. Some of you have gone about your everyday business the same since the pandemic started because that's what your job requires or that's what your life requires. And the idea of having boundaries and setting those up for yourselves can feel a little odd because there's no great way to do it right now when all of your roles seem to interchange and mesh together. The simple answer to the question, does being a therapist ever take its toll on my mental health? I mean, this is hard. It depends on how you describe toll. There are times when I feel the weight of it heavier than other times. And there are times that I'm legitimately very much able to separate that from the rest of my life. I will be honest, when I was driving into an office to do therapy in an office and not teletherapy from my home, it was easier to separate the two because I had to drive home to do things, right? So now I have my session and then I'm writing client notes and then I leave that room and I'm in my house and I'm home, which sounds ideal, but there's no decompress time. There's no time in between work life and home life. And that can be really hard to manage sometimes, no matter what industry you're in, right? What we do as therapists is a weird kind of job because you're sitting in the midst of someone's life with them and you're hearing their stories, the good, the bad, and the somewhere in between. You're hearing about the pain that they have and the joys that they have, and you're hearing about what their experiences has formed them into. And you're helping them through in a way that requires you to share that burden while you're in that time together. It would be irresponsible of me to suggest that that is in no way connected to my everyday life. I believe that on some level that sort of takes away the strength of their stories to act like it doesn't affect me at all, you know? But it's not my story. And being able to separate my story from the narrative that other people hand me, whether it's in therapy or their assumptions about me as a person or, you know, our relationship and what conclusions they've drawn from that or what they expect of me, being able to separate my identity and my worth and my story from external is something that I've spent a lot of time in my life working on. And so that is something that I find easier than other people that I've talked to in the same field. And not everybody. Some people, they've already figured out what works for them as far as separating the two. It is not for me to say whether someone is a good or a bad therapist if it does or doesn't affect them, because we're all individuals. We are all different and we're all unique and we all bring ourselves into that room with our clients. And so everything that you come in with is in that room with you. And it's just, it is a holy place to be. There's something sacred about the idea that someone will come to me and trust me with their story. I'm blown away by it all of the time. And that gratitude for me, the gratitude that I feel and the gratitude that I express in those times that things feel really heavy has been very helpful for me to not take on the burden long term. So when you're dealing with boundaries, you have to deal with the ethics of the relationship also. And if you are unable to remain impartial, either due to something that's happened in your past or goes on in your heart, or the relationship as it develops in the counseling office, if you're no longer able to remain impartial, then you should be referring them to another therapist, because the impartiality is part of what makes counseling effective. The idea that you are so intimately involved in someone else's life on an emotional level is weighty. There's a lot of weight to that, and it's a beautiful weight and it's an honor, but it would be inappropriate and untruthful for me to say I don't feel that sometimes. So there are times where I have to completely unplug from something. There are times where I'll go and find one of my mindless activities to do. For me, two favorite mindless activities are TikTok and Animal Crossing right now. So there's that. But finding something to do that is unplugging and that is rooting me in some way in the reality outside of that time that I've had with someone is very helpful to me. Now, some of you may know I've been in youth ministry a lot of years, and so that is something that I've sort of had to cultivate throughout my life anyway, because there are times that you're sort of sitting with someone in something weighty and something emotional, and you need to be able to, yes, share that, and yes, take that on a little bit in order to share their burden, and then you need to lay it down because it's not your burden to carry. And those, again, boundaries are so very important in order for you to be able to still live your life and be effective in that role. Someone else asked me recently, are you ever able to turn it off? Turning it off is weird. I did some of the things that you're taught to do in school before I went to school. So those kind of things I probably will always do. But there's definitely times now that I hold back from saying something I would have said before I went to school for counseling. Before this journey, there are things I would have said then that I won't say now, not because of a counseling thing, but because I understand the human psyche a little bit better, and it's just not helpful all the time to tell somebody what to do. People learning the answer for themselves is a lot better and a lot more beneficial to the person learning than me telling them what to do. So another way to answer that question, does what I do take a toll on my own mental health? I would say yes, but it's not a negative toll. Like, when we're saying does it take a toll, we're assuming negative, right? But for me, it has an impact on my mental health in a positive way, because I need to stay on top of my feelings. I need to stay dialed in as much as I possibly can to who I am and to what I'm feeling. There have been times, like all of you, in the recent months where my understanding of me has been tested, where my understanding of the world has been tested in a way that I was not expecting. This is outside of counseling. This is outside of ministry. This is just living life in 2020 right now, right? There have been times where I have to pull back. I have to maybe not be on my phone, or I have a lot of trees behind my house, and sometimes I will sit out back and just stare at the trees and watch them sway in the breeze or the not breeze. I'll watch squirrels jump back and forth, and just remembering that there's things out there that have nothing to do with me and have no reliance on me to survive and no connection to me except that we're all on this planet together, for me is very grounding. I do not believe that people are good or bad at their core. I believe people are, and our lives are a compilation of the things that we experience and decisions we make and decisions other people make, and we become this really beautiful, also flawed kind of compilation of all of our experiences, which is how we're always connected to each other in ways that maybe sometimes we don't want to be, or sometimes we do. I don't know. But the beauty of that connection and the beauty of that, just the intertwining of our lives, is what makes us human. And I don't ever want to lose that in myself. So I do allow myself to feel those feelings. I do it in a place that's safe, that's not going to blow back on people I love. But yeah, I do. I let myself feel those feelings sometimes, and I let myself just sort of feel. Sometimes you just have to let yourself feel.